Hello, everybody. This is the Option series at Experimental Sound Studio. And tonight we are absolutely thrilled to have from his home base in Sydney, Australia, the great bassist, organizer, composer, great human being, Clayton Thomas. Hello, Clayton. How are
Hello,
you?
Tim. Greetings. Well, I'm okay in the scheme of things. This is very nice to be seeing your friendly face. Yeah.
I really hope the next time I see you will be at a festival, on a Polish train, or on a gig somewhere, or all of the above. The gig is
I
a
think,
festival, etc., etc. But this is really nice to speak to you virtually in any case.
yeah.
How are you? How are things right now in Sydney? What's going on? Are you in lockdown?
It's just a context. We're in lockdown. We're in like the fourth month of the second lockdown of the COVID experience. I spent 2 weeks in total isolation, ended a couple of days ago, and now I'm allowed to go and get coffee and run back to my house. And so it's a strange time. It's a strange time to be a person, a strange time to be a musician,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And are you most of your work you're doing just from your house? You're not going to any kind of office, or you're not going, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And as far as any kind of live performance in Sydney of any kind, is anything going on at all? Like, can you go to an outdoor concert
no, you can't. Like, you are not allowed with I was saying in the warm up, it's like we're trapped to five kilometers from our house. There is no public gathering at all. It is only essential services are open, which they define in Sydney as coffee shops, petrol stations, and you can get takeaway food, right? So it's just like delivery people living in hell. And yeah, so that's it. So you can't get a haircut, man, as may be obvious. Like, no, like, so we're in that version of the lockdown again. And our numbers, like, we all we're part of the, global curve, of course. And this time our numbers are 3 times that from last year when the planet went into lockdown.
Wow.
Delta, it flies.
Delta does fly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right about that. It's
And
amazing.
it's passengers, which I think is also an analogy that continues from that,
So how many more Greek letters are left for the variants of the virus?
In Australia? Look, I think much like you guys, the next step is we're out, and I just got booked for my first gig in a year basically. So that they're perceiving in April there's going to be a festival that can go ahead, but everything that has been booked, like giant citywide events that have been set up for the last 2 years, have all been cancelled. And so we're in that space, and we had, in between this lockdown and the last one, there was a period where things were open, but it was super controlled, like, a quarter of the, one person every 4 meters, that kind of stuff. So that was just beginning to shift into, that's our new way of putting on gigs and the new expectations. But that it got shut down hard again on July 1st. So we've been basically go home and stay home, which has not been necessarily, I've actually found I've made a lot of interesting musical relationships in this time that are also, I think, interesting, right? Like, and I'm sure you guys experience that, and any of the musicians listening, that we normalized a new way of connecting and recording and creating records or creating experiences musically in this forum, in the screen world, which I think has created some, at least from my perspective, I've made music that I would not otherwise have made, and like, I mean, aesthetically and sonically, like, it would not have existed. And like, I'm a devout improviser, for the most part, and it's like all of the rules we place around ourselves, ironically, around what it is to be an improviser, have had to be broken to make music in this space, right? Being in a place, having connection to audience in the moment, all of those things around energetic, resonant, spiritual, landed contexts we've had to go, well, if I want to make music, I have to break those. and also the idea of the impulse, the connection of impulse.
Right. Totally.
Late, has totally shifted, and we've had to go, well, this is now my new domain of being is connected to the internet. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Terrifying. I don't like it. It's not something I want to project into going, this is some idealized state, because I don't think it is at all. But it's made things, and I think things that when we listen back to what the music that's going to come out of this era, this period, are going to be shifted because we've globally gone through the same experience.
You're absolutely right. I tell a lot of my students, I'm like, if you're feeling stuck creatively, impose some set of limitations on yourself. Get rid of the drums, or get rid of everything except the snare drum and the cymbal, or like try to like think of things with a new perspective. This pandemic has been an ultimate set of limitations in so many ways, right? So it's really forcing us to get creative, but that's what we've always tried to do, right? So I've been really amazed with the output of work I've seen. Recorded work, concert work. I've been completely inspired, amazingly inspired to see how artists have been able to adapt to this and create new work, collaborations online or not, or get together, duo stuff where it's safe and they're distanced and they're wearing masks. Like it's been really inspiring, to be honest.
It looks like where you are, well, like the American thing is you've now sort of gone, the pandemic for us, it's there, people will die, we'll go play gigs, whatever. You've sort of opened and gone, this is just how it is. When you were in the lockdown, right, because that definitely happened. So if context between us, right, there's in Sydney where I live, there's, an improvised music series that I used to run, and there's maybe 2 or 3 others that might happen within the course of 6 months. There might, they're like around the idea of instrumental improvised music. There's not very much happening, and there's a jazz series that happens and might do a show once a month, and there's some sound art series that happen, but all very once a month would be your maximum routine of any gig happening around the creative, music that's around space and listening and, not performative in the same way that, but what I imagine in Chicago, there's like that times 20. Is that true?
Yes, there is. The feeling I'm getting, and I've been able to travel recently to the South, where I'm doing a monthly residency in a quote unquote red state. And I'm honestly, where I'm going is it's a capital of the city, where it's a university town, where everyone in that state, it's the one city where they're taking it the most seriously out of all the other cities in the state. I'm feeling really everywhere I go down there and in Chicago and here in Evanston where I live, which is right next to Chicago, a feeling of like, we have to get on with our effing lives. There's this awful pandemic. I'm vaxxed. I did everything I could to protect myself and my family. I'm wearing a mask. We have to just go. And that was the same thing where I went in Columbia, South Carolina. People were like, they were very cool. I did a concert. They were wearing masks, but it was like, let's go. Like I have a feeling in this country, Clayton, that if the government really tried to go back to a full lockdown, there would be a massive revolt. Like it's not going to happen. Even if there's a variant that's worse and more transmissible than Delta, it's not going to happen. In America, it's like, no, we're getting past this shit, and we're already past it. Even though, of course, healthcare workers are like dealing with the brunt of it, especially in some of these low vaccinated states, and it's not fair to them at all. But it definitely is a feeling of like there's no way in hell we're ever going to get back to what we had to deal with in March of 2020. So let's just move on with our lives. And there it is. That's really kind of how it's going. So for better and worse. So yes, there's been a lot of concerts, a lot of them outdoors, some indoors, and the ones like in Chicago, you have to show proof of vaccination and you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Anthony Fauci says that is actually pretty safe environment to be in. So, okay,
if you're vaccinated.
If you're vaccinated and you wear a mask. So there it is.
I think, like, I'm sure every video, every podcast that's happening in the world at this time, coronavirus is its subject, regardless of what we're here to talk about, because it affects absolutely everything. But I
Affecting
think
every
it's like,
part of our lives. Yeah.
we have the same situation here. It's like, we've hit a 70% vaccination rate, but then you have, basically a generation of, thank you, Fox Media, which sort of.
Well, thank you, Australia, for giving America Rupert Murdoch, by the way.
Really, what a team. What a team. Collectively, we've really made this difficult because you've kind of, turned a bunch of, like every 60 white, like, let's tap into our latent or explicit white supremacy and conservatism and self-defense, whatever, and just sort of go, let's combine all these things, and now we have like the global conspiracy theory dynamic. So, but one of the things is like in Melbourne, you've had this sort of series of protests, of anti-vax protests, and here they've tried to have a couple, but it's like 20 people, like there. I think online it's like there's a much
bigger. And they're all
dead
now. So.
They're
all dead now. So now there's only 6 because 14 of them died. Yeah.
We haven't. I mean, yeah, we've had a fair amount of the irony, because you pure case numbers in America. The irony is more explicit, because you've got more people with voice and more people sort of being present,
Okay. Well, look, I'm going to cut in for a second because at the end of the day, this is a music program. So let's get to some music. And I know we have a lot to talk about because we've had some wonderful experiences together. I've heard you so many times in so many contexts. I just bought a recent recording I want to talk about. All good stuff. Let's get into that. But first, let's hear the first of 3 Clayton Thomas bass presentations that we're going to hear throughout the program, and then we will get back to the conversation. This is Option series at Experimental Sound Studio with our guest Clayton Thomas from his home base in Sydney, Australia. Ralph, roll the first video, please.
Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. We're back with Clayton Thomas, giving us a solo arco explosion, which was absolutely fantastic. I had a question from Ken Vandermark regarding the action on your strings, asking if you've lowered it at all. And I think it was connected to all these harmonics that you're able to get out of the instrument. Have you had to adapt the instrument at all since we've been not collaborating at all, or is it pretty much the same setup that you've had?
It's the same unplayable force of struggle and difficulty that it has always been. Yeah. So
great. It's a good struggle if it's a struggle.
It's set up because I guess I have I don't know. We all have our weird little cruxes that we sort of go, this is the way in. Making the bass as hard as possible to play, because that's kind of how I experienced the first bass I ever picked up from someone, has always been. And Ken he wrote a little note just saying the height of your strings is legendary. And it's well, it's more like just it is still the same height and causes the same problems. But it also allows something that just simply is impossible on a bass setup in a normal way. So, you know, like not for the, you know, for the piece you just heard, which is really, oops, sorry. I've got a lot of sound on me right now.
Is that a bell?
my drink bottle is like.
That sounds great, man.
It is an echo.
Music in Clayton Thomas' house, yeah.
Sorry, it's got to play. My speaker is dying. You know, so for a piece like that, where there's nothing going through the strings, and that's really just about. There's going to be a lot of volume coming. The bass is fucking loud, right? Because of that, and there's a huge amount of density in the frequency spectrum because the bass is tight, the strings are tight, and they're high, and there's a lot of. You can really push into shift tone, and the harmonics are really like it's a much harder sound because you can play the bass with a lot more physical kind of power than you can on a bass setup for classical music or for a standard jazz setup, because you just simply can't put that much pressure on the string. So a bass like mine, you can, as Jeff said, you can try and saw that in half and it'll survive.
Yeah.
In the next piece, I do a lot of stuff that winding things through the strings and you know, creating basically a different instrument that's only possible because the strings sit up that high off the fingerboard.
Sure.
So it just makes certain things really hard. So, you know, as in just, you know, most of my practice is still basically like lifting weights. You know what I mean? Like not physically, but it's like make sure you can actually press the strings down on the fingerboard and make sure you can run a line at this tension, you know, so.
But you can only get a certain quality of projection from that instrument if you have high action, though. Am I correct in that? Like
Yeah,
it'll only project that way and operate that way. It's like, and I don't know anything about saxophones, but I imagine it's similar to saxophones having to use harder reeds.
Yeah, it's the same. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, right. It's harder, but if you work that up, then if you work up the muscles, if you work it up, the amateur, you get possibilities that don't come out of the instrument with
it's so much to do with the experience in a room, right? So like as in our experience, and we were talking about this before, it's like I want to play acoustic as much as possible.
Correct.
Or acoustically in a room. So, you know, when I went on tour, when I go on, most of the times you and I've played, it's acoustic. When I've gone on tour with Sonny Simmons and played quite big rooms with no amp, and I've put a table behind the bass facing out just so give me a little bit of kick. But, you know, you can play to a room of 600 people with my bass when I'm in shape, right? When it's like you can absolutely kill a 2-hour set playing hard. What you've got is this punch into the sound, into the room that just doesn't exist coming through a speaker because it's a resonant chamber pushing out. And it's the same with the saxophone. Control a reed that's going to give you that volume. It's not just volume, it's the amount of frequency and the breadth of the spectrum harmonically coming off the instrument, and therefore the depth of the sound that you're entering into, you know. So it's like embrace the audience to come into your instrument as opposed to, you know, a different experience, and that's part of it. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you brought up Sonny Simmons, so before we go to our next video, let's talk a little bit about when and why you went to New York and who you met when you're there. Because what I understand is you weren't really even playing bass when you went to New York.
No. The first time I had a radio program in Sydney. This is out in Liverpool where I grew up when I was 17, and I did that for, I don't know, 17, 18, and then I just became a jazz head. And my, you know, this is pre-internet, so this is the 90s, and, you know, going to record stores and blah, 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 blah. And I started pushing more and more towards avant-garde music just in terms of my personal listening. And then, you know, I had a job as a copywriter, and I saved up some money, and I went to New York, stayed in Chelsea at a little hostel, and I'd sort of booked this little itinerary, and on that itinerary was to go to see the Sun Ra Orchestra at the Knitting Factory. And this is when John Gilmore was leading the band. I think it was John Gilmore was still alive. When did John die?
I don't know, to be honest. I would have to look that up.
either John Gilmore or Danny Davis. I'm sorry to not remember, but I feel like that's information I should have.
We're going to have to end this interview.
Exactly. But I was I'm sitting on I'm sitting there to go and see the orchestra, and I was like the first person in the room. And then Andy Bemke, who is this astounding piano player from New York, actually Margaret Davis, who used to be a big promoter of avant-garde music and around the Vision Festival, and that community came in, and she was always a very friendly person to anyone that she would see as open to interesting music. She came and started chatting to me, and then I was in New York for 3 weeks. I got really close to Andy and Margaret, and they introduced me to the Vision Festival, right? And then, and that was the next summer, or I think it was like July or August. So I booked tickets to come back, and then I hadn't started playing bass then. I was playing some electric bass, and then because I was with them, I met Reggie Workman before I'd started playing bass.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. I met Cameron Brown 2 weeks after starting to play bass. I got my first lesson. I learned half position from Wilbur Morris. It's like my connections. I saw William Parker play, and that's when I got a bass the next day. So it's like my connections to that. Yeah, New York was like, you're in the right place, the right place, the right place, the right place, the right place. All just meeting astounding musicians constantly and being embraced by that community and just being so excited.
That's great. New York, late 90s.
I met
mid-90s, late 90s. It was great.
It was 2000 Vision Festival. I started playing bass.
Yeah.
And then 2001, I played in the Vision Festival. So it was like in a year, I was on the stage there playing with Mike Pride and Rob Brown and Lewis Barnes and Kentaro Sato. So like because I didn't study bass, so like my whole experience has been playing with and have my ass kicked by in New York, and then trying to bring that back to Sydney and go, where are my people, and finding them.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's go down to another. There's a lot we still got to get to. So let's go on to the next video, watch some more music, and then I would love to talk to you a little bit about your move to Berlin after this. So
okay,
let's go to another video. Again, this is the Option series at Experimental Sound Studio with my guest Clayton Thomas from his locked down home in Sydney, Australia. We're gonna watch another video if it's worked now, and please enjoy. And we'll be back in about 13 minutes. Take it away, Ralph.
Part 2. Excuse my hair. Whatever. It's Sunday. Hi Tim. Hi Ken. Hi people I don't know. Hi Josh. Tamika, I'd like to meet you one day. That'd be nice. The music is excellent.
We're back.
Yeah, thank you for listening, people.
We're back. Another fantastic improvised exploration by Clayton Thomas. And that piece went a lot of places. Arco, pizzicato, mallets, license plate, all of it fantastic. I wanted to actually ask you a question connected to not just to that piece, but in general with solo work. Strategies. Are you someone that just likes to go in and just have a clear head and just play, and all the work was done in the practice room, and when it's time to improvise, you're not trying to think of anything, you just kind of just let things happen? Or do you develop strategies? Do you have like sets? Yeah, like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big question, but you can only say pass if you don't want to answer the question.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question. I think, right, okay, so I've played a lot of solo gigs. It's like, I guess, bass players, thanks to Bar Phillips.
Oh, yeah.
Bar, my man. And I'm pointing to Cougéville, not to heaven. Yeah, important to note there. One of my many fathers. It's like, you know, bass players get to play solos, you know, and so I spent a lot of time playing solos and going through lots of phases, Tim, around to have a strategy. Like I remember gigs where I would lay out my cards. This is what you are, start here, move here, move here, move here. Like, you know, build and construct a thing. Or, you know, I've got like compositional strategies that are like action problems, you know, like simple things like you're not allowed to play a second sound before you play the first sound. You're not allowed to play the third sound before you play the first and second sound again. So, you know, like really basic gestures that mean that you have to be present in what happens,
correct,
you know, and so you build a kind of sense of a sonic, you know, relationship and of evolution that's just built around rules. I like rules in solo playing and in orchestra playing that don't define material but define listening and process of moving from one thing to another. Also, and so like the two solos that are here, like strategies, right? It's like the first one was start something that's going to be hard to hold and see how you go, you know, like, which is a bit like the Ames Room, one of my band with Will Guthrie and Jean-Luc Guillenet. It's like start here and hold it.
Yeah.
You know, and the journey of holding it becomes the music, because you are placing yourself in this isn't, it's physical, you know, and that takes, for me anyway, it takes the pressure and the ego and the sense of what I'd like to have happen out of the equation, so that you're kind of in a response. As a solo situation, you're responding to your survival sonically, and that has its own energy, versus I want to move from this phrase to this phrase, or this territory, or this harmonic sequence, or whatever you do. For the one you just heard, this comes down to my, often I'll listen to improvised music and go, people will land in a comfortable place 10 minutes in or 20 minutes in, and you're like, oh, now we're here. We've just struggled to get here. And I remember hanging out with Peter Kovold in New York, of all places, and he said, Clayton, you have to keep the bad music on the record so that when you get to the good music, it has a feeling. You got to keep the struggle. You've got to keep the stuff that didn't work so that when it lands, it has purpose and meaning. So there's that thing where on that piece, what I did was I'm going to start somewhere comfortable for me. Yeah. You know, I'm going to start in a place where I go, this is, I know, I love this sound. I love this gesture, and it's very close to me. The number plate, it is not a gimmick. It's a sonic experience for me that I go, thank you. This is a sound I connect to. Yeah. To move. Instead of I'm trying to get to this place that's somehow interesting or somehow comfortable, I'm going to start in the place where we're done and go, we're all landed here, then move from there, you know? So, and in that piece, I remember it. I just remember sort of listening, just really no strategy, be comfortable and then listen, because you have expectations of where this is going to go. And, you know, place yourself in a situation where you don't know what one gesture is going to land you in. So, and then you find yourself there and you go, well, that sound is worth holding on to, that one isn't. So I'm going to hold on to that and listen. So it really, man, it just depends. Like, it really depends. And yeah, and sometimes it's like there's definitely a strategy for the piece after the last piece, which is just a short piece, which, you know, there's simple things, and in the context of going, well, here's a little bracket of solo music for the people online, for anyone who watches again. It's like, you know, it captures very simple things that are connected to what I love: space, or deep listening, or struggle. You know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, before the next piece, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your move to Berlin.
Oh yeah.
To New York. Did you go to Australia for a while and then to Berlin?
I was living in Australia, so I would just come to New York 3 months a year. So I did that for 5 years pretty much. So 99 to 2004, I came for 3 months a year. And so I, for the summer, I studied with Wilbur Morris, and then I had lessons with Peter Kovold and became friends with him before he passed away. That was very beautiful. And then I had some lessons with Henry Grimes, and I spent time with Henry. And just was, you know, doing the thing of like, I'd save up money during the year and come and sleep on Andy's couch, or I stayed at some friends' places. Miriam Parker, William put me up for a couple of weeks. It's like,
wonderful.
I was part of the Vision Festival community as the young keen Australian, and you know, I was very, you know, I got to just go to a million concerts. I saw Cecil Taylor play a lot of times. I saw David Murray play a lot of times. You know, I got hung out with, you know, played lots of music, lots of people, you know. And so I was just in deep. And then I would come home and I'd run the festival here and do my day job, you know. And then at some point it was like,
I don't mean to cut in, Clayton, but do you realize, I'm realizing as I get older, how unbelievably amazing it is that you were able to have those experiences. I mean, you study fucking Henry Grimes. Like, you're sitting at your job now in Sydney. I'm like, I'm the only one in the room that ever got to even meet Henry Grimes. And it's like, sorry, but that's kind of amazing. Like,
I confront that, and I'm sure a lot of us do. It's like, because I am living a very, like, my life in Australia right now, we're in lockdown, so there are very few gigs, but there has not been a moment since moving back here from Berlin where I could afford to pay my rent from music. You know, like it just doesn't exist. Like in Berlin, it's like the flipped experience. You get paid. Well, not Berlin. Berlin is like any big city. There's no money, but there are occasional experiences. But what you have is cheap rent, huge community of musicians who are going hard, and access to Paris and Vienna and Switzerland and all these places that do big gigs that pay. You know, one gig is going to pay you your month's rent.
Yes.
You know, that's like straight up.
Got a pool of amazing musicians who keep you motivated, keep you inspired.
All of that stuff, but just straight economy.
Yeah.
One gig is your month's rent. So you've got time. I do 3 rehearsals and a gig a day, you know, for years. And so you're in that thing. You don't have to worry about, you know, that. Come back to Sydney and, you know, I might get a gig a month when it's open, and it's going to pay $100. You know, and so it just doesn't exist. So you're in this life where, you know, I'm raising 2 kids, and I'm in that thing of going, okay, this remarkable life with all these remarkable people is something I basically have to carry to keep me strong moving through this period of my life, you know, and let me know that when I'm in music and when I'm working with people, that I do have something to bring to that, because my day is no longer defined by being able to just be 100% in the magic experience of being this musician on this planet at this time, you know. And that's, so I'm, you know, when I think back at that and I go, you know, I remember the last conversation I had with Wilbur Morris. I remember the last conversation I had with Peter Kovold, and he told me he loved me. You know, the last conversation I had with Wilbur Morris was never stop playing. You know, he said, you have the thing, so you never stop playing, you know, and that kind of stuff. It's like these people who went, you are this person, go make, you know, keep moving. And that's weird. And if it's going to take a few more years for the world around us to settle into a space where I can go, I'm going to be able to put on gigs again that mean something for the community, and where I can travel to play with you, and I can travel back to the spaces where we are all having this conversation about what it is post this period to make music and to be present in sound for each other, you know, those amazing experiences will get me through this one, you know.
Yeah.
That
Right
makes
on.
sense. That's for everyone, right?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. And let's just keep working in any possible kind of way we can during this hard period, and we'll just keep moving forward in any way we can, and hope that we can all meet more frequently in person. I'm hopeful. I'm keeping hopeful. Because some things are open right now. You know, I'm traveling in the States, and I know some musicians that are going to Europe. It's a new reality. It's a new way of playing, but it's still it's happening. So I'm keeping optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
Clayton, unbelievably, I mean, we barely scratched the surface, but I think it's unbelievably we're out of time.
Oh my God. Okay.
There's so much we got to get to. I mean, we didn't even talked about any of your recordings yet, or any of that. But we still have another video we want to get to. So I think the obvious thing we need to do is have you back at some point.
Honestly, the last piece, it's like, I don't know. It's okay. I really like the last one. This next one, I'm happy to, if we've got 2 minutes, let's just chat. You know, it's like, you don't need, it's fine. You know,
Okay.
go
Well,
listen to some.
You know what? If Ralph was okay with it, maybe we can extend and chat a little longer and still play the last video. Maybe we can do it. Great, we can do that. So let's chat just a little bit more, because one thing I do want to ask you about. Yes, Ralph said it's all. We got the green light.
Thanks, Ralph.
The executives upstairs said it's fine. So we're gonna keep going. I want to ask you. I just downloaded a really nice record called Words Fail.
Oh yeah.
With Chris Abrahams. And the drummer, I don't know this drummer. Where are you going? Clayton Thomas will be back momentarily. Here he is.
Look at this. Sorry, if this isn't exciting, this is exciting. This
Very
thing,
nice.
it's a gatefold.
Wow.
Sorry,
Congratulations, Clayton.
just
A gatefold. A gatefold. I've listened to the first 2 tracks, and I think your microphone went out. Can you say something? You're there. Sorry. I thought it went out. No, I loved it. It's very patient in a good way, and there's a lot of tension, and it's beautiful. So it's Chris Abrahams from New Zealand originally, right?
Yes, originally.
Okay, where is he at now? Is he in Berlin still, or is he in
Australia? He's in Sydney. So Chris has always been in Sydney, but he does a lot of travel with the Necks, and that's his primary, you know, the greatest band in the world, quote unquote, just masters. But he lives here. Tony, the drummer, lives in Berlin, and Lloyd, the bass player, also lives in Sydney, but in the Blue Mountains. So that's a Sydney. But Chris does all the travel, and Lloyd, you know, the band tours the world once a year at least. So.
Was that a record that was made? I didn't check the date. It looks like something very recent. Did you make that during pandemic, or is that right before the pandemic?
We pulled it together as an album during the pandemic, but we recorded it just before.
Okay.
So that was this is kind of like this was like a little dream band project for me when I sort of was going, okay, what do I want to do? I was working with Miles Thomas, no relation, but a brother, a fantastic, like a pop drummer and an engineer and a hip hop player and a producer. And I heard him play at a little bar doing a hip hop gig. I was just like, who the fuck is this guy? Excuse my language. Because the way he hit the snare, I was like, this, you know, it was like that thing, the sound of the way he played snare was just like, I have to meet this guy. And he was a very low key dude.
Yeah.
Never really into improvising as such. He doesn't know who Paul Lovins is or Han Benick or you know, like Hamid is not, you know, he knows some mainstream jazz players in that world, right?
Totally.
But he's not in our place of like, okay, what are your references? But, you know, so it's like, okay, well, but playing with him, I knew it would be like this, was just so musical, like just so deeply musical. And, you know, for someone who doesn't have a music, like a background in theory and study, like my learning is playing, and the things I play are not built around playing structured music in the way that someone like that is, you know. I love finding someone who can bring that and bring out a deeper musicality in me in a way. And Chris is just, you know, Chris, right? He's one of the secrets of the planet. And he will also bring like two very deep musical people in there. And I knew that playing with them would bring out something would demand something of me around patience and around listening and expression, because they're both also very quiet men, you know. They're not big, like boisterous, lugubrious kind of like people. They're deep thinking, quiet men. And, you know, I wanted also that to go, okay, this isn't about showing a kind of, you know, that kind of like boisterous dynamism. This is about like go deep, because they will go deep. And I think we did create a record that brought that out in all. It's something very beautiful in us, because then also my kind of like, wow, let's go push gets tempered in a really deep, in a beautiful way. So, you know, I think it's quite a special record. And I'm just so happy it's out, and I'm happy it's kind of like it sounds beautiful. Miles mixed it and mastered it. And it's just that thing where, like, in the midst of this chaos, to go, oh, we're able to bring something out into the world that feels deep, you know.
Right. Oh, it's a lovely record, and I would argue that without your element there, it would still be a strong record, but it would be quite a different record. Having that element of Clayton Thomas knocks it around just enough, I think, to create something different. And that different is something that I just personally will spend more time with. And nothing against the other; they're both brilliant, but it just knocks it around just enough, I think.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. There's a tension there, and it's great. And I really hope that band is a band that will continue to work once we're out of the muck.
Too. Thank you for saying that, Tim. Thanks.
No
really
problem. No problem. You can Venmo me $15 to just kidding. No, thank you, Clayton. Actually, just one more question, I guess. Let's pretend that the lockdown ends tomorrow. What kind of things, like, let's say you're able to get on a plane, what are you looking forward to doing? Are you planning on flying back to Europe to do some work if you are able to? Do you have recordings that you want to do? What's on the
lockdown breaks? First, it's like, be here and play some music.
Got it.
You know, just be in some space here and try and land and try and take this moment and recommit to community here, because I think we've felt a real lack. That's difficult for all of us, you know. We feel very isolated. And then, you know, like the Ames Room, we're already talking about how do we go touring again. So that's Jean-Luc and Will, one of those bands that's like, you know, that's family, that's lifelong.
Yeah.
You know, definitely we want to just go and be and dive into the physical, you know. And then obviously in Berlin, Splitter Orchestra is still rocking, and I want to be able to go back into that community. But I mean, that's, you know, that's like, there's time. There's hopefully time. One of the things I go back to, and I'm, you know, not to talk about, you know, old people, but it's like so many of the people I toured with and had spent years touring with were, you know, like I'll be 46 in January, so it's like 50, they're like 55, 60, 65, and they are killing it. And it's like, so it's not done.
No.
So, you know, like, sort of go, okay, it's like this is a period. I sort of consider it like the Charles Mingus hiatus, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's out. I don't know what he's doing. He's raising kids, man, and like writing and those things. And we'll all of us, you know, and hopefully the communities that have struggled the most through this, you know, will hopefully sort of, you know, enter out of it with energy and care and, you know, love, essentially. So, you know, I think for me, yeah, I would like to re-enter a space where I can be with my musical family in over the place because we, people like, we've been very lucky in terms of, I think, connect very deeply in lots of different places. And that becomes a big part of what gives you the space to investigate your music going deeper and your connection to time, place, and spirit, in those things. So
I couldn't agree more. Very well put. Absolutely well put. And I look forward to more activity around the corner. I look forward to seeing you in Europe. I look forward to seeing you in the United States. I look forward to us in Australia together, wherever. I look forward to being on a Polish train with you.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen.
We'll talk about that next time.
But man, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Clayton. It was really, really nice to catch up.
Thanks, Tim.
And so nice to hear your music again. And don't be a stranger. And we'll see you soon at a venue near you or near me.
Awesome.
Good luck to you with everything, with parenting, with the music, with all of it.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it so much. And thanks, Ralph, for making this possible. Technical, he's the guy in the background.
He's the guy in the background making the video magic happen. I want to thank Ralph. I want to thank ESS. I want to thank my option collaborators, Ken Vandermark and Andrew Klinkman, for their help with booking the series. And that's it. We're going to end with one more piece by Clayton Thomas. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Take it away, Ralph.
Bye.